FX has just released a season to come preview, so I thought, hey, why not break this baby down since it has some awesome clues as to what's to come. If you haven't seen it yet, I've left a link in the description, so give it a look and come on back. The first thing I want to say is that even though they titled this season to come, I think the footage here is only from the next 2, maybe 3 episodes. I've said this before, but I seriously don't think the pace of the show can last an entire 10 episodes, which means we might be in for a big shakeup mid-season. This could mean a time jump or a switch to an entirely different setting. If you go onto IMDb, you'll notice that the episode titles for episodes 6 to 10 have not been named, and the description for episode 5, Red Dawn, states as Twilight broaches the survivors brace for a final brawl. So my guess is that something big will happen in episode 5. But enough about that, let's get right into this preview. We start with a man running, looking like he's being chased. This is the hiker from episode 1. The film grain used here suggests this is a flashback, and poor hiker gets hit by a car again. Now the editors here are faking us out, trying to make us think he gets hit by Mr. Jingles, but if you compare the 2 trucks, the one driven by Mr. Jingles in episode 1 and this one, you can see they're both different. Now it still could be Mr. Jingles, we do see him later on with the hiker, but it would have to have been in a different time. My crazy theory is that this hiker is from the original massacre in the 1970s and has somehow made it to 1984 with no memory of the past. It would explain how confused he looked when he was told that Camp Redwood had reopened.
Reopen?
We get a few recycled shots of Mr. Jingles arriving, and Dr. Hopple also arrives at the camp, who tells Margaret that Jingles has an obsession with her. If you've seen my episode 1 breakdown, you'll know we've theorized that Jingles was framed for the murders and that Margaret is the real killer. Here we see her praying with someone looming in the background. It's not Mr. Jingles here, no trench coat or bow-legged feet. We also see this shot of Margaret having survived the massacre, and she tells Hopple that even though she's been warned a psychopath might be on the loose, Camp Redwood will open as scheduled. At the dock, Brooke comes across a floating dead body and notices the slashes to her face. We don't yet know who this person is, but this is probably what spurs Brooke to go to Margaret and tell them they're in danger, but Margaret isn't having any of it. Here's a lovely game of spin the bottle where Montana finally gets some one-on-one action with Brooke, and there goes Trevor with his pants off again. Someone turns off the lights, and judging by the well-polished nails, this is a woman. And if we backtrack earlier in the preview, look who has the exact same nails. Margaret. This is just more evidence that Margaret is the real killer. Now, I'm not convinced this next shot of the lights going out near Xavier is linked to the shutdown we just saw, mainly because this random dude pushes him away. My guess is that this might be some sort of detective that's been sent to investigate, and he's actually helping Xavier from the real killer. Now we have Hopple being attacked by what appears to be Mr. Jingles, but since we don't see his face, it could be a fake out. Montana and Rita tumble through the forest, and here we have the Night Stalker about to stab Brooke. Now I'm a little conflicted here because if you stop the frame here, it doesn't look like he's actually going to stab her, rather the dock, just to scare her. But in the next scene, we do see her with a stab wound to the shoulder. Jingles is seen killing this man here, who I believe is this same character who grabbed Xavier that we saw earlier. We have what appears to be some sort of trap, which we'll see later, and look at this shot. It's Mr. Jingles holding a man wearing an identical raincoat. Perhaps this was the man we saw earlier going after Hopple. We do not know his identity. Rita tries to flag down help and is almost run over. It could be Xavier here since we see him in the van, but it could be another fake out. I love this shot of Mr. Jingles. Again, we don't see his face, but you can see his collection of ears dangling from his belt. Brooke looks shocked to see something, and we get a few shots of Ray trying to escape from a pit. The most intriguing one is here, in which we do see Jingles pouring gasoline over him, which really puts a wrench in the theory that Jingles is here for revenge on just Margaret. We do know that Ray's job is an orderly. What if he was an orderly at the same hospital Mr. Jingles was at? That could definitely be gasoline worthy. I also have a ton of questions like how Jingles would have time to make these elaborate traps, so there's obviously someone helping or other people involved in one way or another. This shot here kind of confirms it, as Jingles, or at least someone who's dressed like Jingles, lets this motorcyclist leave without chasing him. But I think we'll learn more about what motivates Jingles in the episodes to come. him, since we get this shot of him at the insane asylum. He probably had electroshock therapy done to him, so who knows what's going on in his mind. And look here, new character. Doesn't seem to be having a good time though. Poor Chet seems to have found himself in the same pit that we saw Ray in, and Xavier is consoled by what appears to be Montana. We have the Night Stalker spooking the shit out of Rita, and look here, another raincoat-clad dude throwing a Molotov cocktail into the cabin. It looks like we're gonna have multiple Mr. Jingles / copycat killers. I'm wondering if these trenchcoat guys might be linked to the Night Stalker and some Satanist cult. Now this is great. I'm pretty sure this is Jingles fighting the Night Stalker. We'll get a better shot of this later, where he literally picks him up with superhuman strength, and notice also another trap in the background. Perhaps he saves one of the campers this way and is defending them by taking on the Night Stalker. And holy shit, another crazy trap, a giant log with spikes on it. We see what I think is the real Mr. Jingles here, taking a tire iron to the face of the hiker. But again, I think this is a flashback, so who knows why the hiker is being attacked. That was a lot to unpack, and honestly, I'm not sure if that raised more questions than it solved. I hope you'll give this video a like and subscribe with the bell on, because I'll be covering the whole season of AHS. You can also follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT, and until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.